Hello, everyone. Today with us, we have Jacob Wade, who quit his job, sold his home to travel the country with his family for 2.5 years. He's also the founder of Roadmap Money. Jacob, how are you doing today?
Deacon, I'm doing awesome. Thanks so much for having me on, man.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about your journey. So, what made you decide you wanted to quit your job? That seems kind of like a bold move.
In 2016, I picked up a job. I finally got promoted to this job where I was like making more money than we needed. It was awesome. It was a sales job, but it included travel. And so that meant me hopping on a plane, every other week or so to go visit some clients during the day. Sometimes I would stay overnight. And then we had our third child in October of 2016. And so we had, kids 6 and under at home, three of them. And then I got promoted in 2017 to the account management position, meaning I owned all the accounts in 5 different states for this company. And so I was doing tech sales and again, chasing the dollar bill. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to make so much money and this, that, and the other. Well, my travel more than doubled. And so
Mm.
basically all of 2017, I would hop on a plane on Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. and I would land and then get home at 10 p.m. on Thursday. And my wife was at home with the three littles and basically a single mom for 3 days a week. And so it turned into this very stressful cycle, combined with like sales were slumping, and it was kind of like all of these crazy things. And then we had some medical issues and a bunch of other things all happening. And so this all culminated in like a year of just like insanity. And by the end of 2017, we knew we had to do something. We were just like losing it. And I actually had a mental breakdown. There was a time that I came home, I think it was in November, and I walked through the door and the kids were like, "Hey, Dada," and the dog was greeting me and everything. And I literally just I couldn't even say a word. And I walked in, I just laid on the floor and I was just I just laid on my back and I stared at the ceiling and the kids were jumping all over me and I literally couldn't even say anything. I was just like, I lost it. I had a full
Mm.
mental breakdown. My wife got the kids to bed. I was about 2 hours on the ground, just staring at the ceiling. And I realized this was not working. And if I headed down this path, like this was going to be really detrimental to my health, my marriage, and like everything else. And but I didn't know how to get out of it because I'd worked so hard to get into this position to make, more than 6 figures and like do, this was like, oh, this is what I should be doing, right? That I'm doing all the right things. Um, and so I was like, I need an escape hatch. I need a way out. And my wife and I had been reading this website on somebody that like took a year off and traveled in an RV. And we're like, that's a nice idea. Basically, once I'm a financially independent, let me go do that. Right. I just need, about $1 million or so in the bank. We'll make this happen. And then I like sketched it all out. And we were super shopping for houses at this time, by the way. So we also wanted bigger, better, more. We're trying to inflate our lifestyle. And I think we were just compensating for the fact that we were both miserable.
Mm.
And when I put it all on paper, I'm like, I got to do this job for at least 10 more years, investing diligently and saving a big chunk of our money and like all this stuff to get to the place where I'm quote unquote, financially independent.
Mm.
And I would absolutely crash and burn and like it would not happen. It wouldn't happen. And then I discovered something called Coast FI. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But essentially I realized I had invested enough, even though I was really just kind of hitting my 401k match and doing one of my Roth IRAs. I had invested enough that if I never put another penny in the market, that we would be fine by regular retirement age. And so then we looked at each like there was after the mental breakdown, there was a time in December. I don't remember when it was. My wife was like showering or something. I literally like kicked in the door and I said, I'm done. 12 months from now, we're out. And then I left. And she was like, washing her like, wait, what? Wait, what are you talking about? We're out. And we sat down and talked about it. I said, honey, I'm gonna quit my job and we're gonna sell the house and we're gonna go travel. Like, screw it. And she said, cool. And that was it.
That's amazing. So there's a lot to unpack there, right? Because I think some people watching or listening, they could resonate to that feeling of like, I am burnt out. What I'm doing is not working. I wish I could do something else. But what made you want to like travel the country? I mean, you could have just got a better job that didn't make you travel, right? Like, but you decided to travel the country. What was the kind of the impetus of that?
I think part of it was just feeling the squeeze of like the corporate world. I'd contracted at Microsoft for 7 years. I did tech sales for about 4 years. And like, I just felt there was something about that environment that I was just like not vibing with. And I was just like, this is not the trajectory path I want to be on. And again, absolutely blessed to be in those positions. And the money was fantastic for a guy that was in his early 30s. And like, I had this career path that I never thought I would have. And it looked great on paper. But there was just something like I was just like, I don't know. I think it was just all the stress of the job and home and family life and everything else that realized we just needed like a massive pivot. Not just kind of like, oh, let's make this change over here. Let's get a different job. It's like we needed something major. And so I don't know. I say it's like a God thing, like because we were both feeling the same thing internally, and we're like, we need that. We just felt like because we looked for a house for a year and a half and never found the right one. And I feel like there was a reason for that. Like we were supposed to like just get out, and so for me, I think that combined with we had been dreaming about RVing. It was just kind of this fun thing. We'd have a little date night at home, right? Because we had kids, so we weren't going anywhere, but we had date night at home, and we'd, open a bottle of wine and read through and watch, people that traveled full time. And we're like, this is such a cool idea. So I think that was already kind of there. And then everything just culminated to go, what would it take to actually do this? And when I put it on paper, I was like, oh, well, I need a ton of money. I need to be financially independent. And then when I realized, oh, wait, we have some home equity. We've already invested diligently enough that we don't technically need to put any more in, and we just need to make enough to pay the bills. What if we used the home equity to just go travel for a year? That was the plan for 1 year. Let's just get it done. And so that was kind of the impetus was, all these parts and pieces are falling into place. We could actually make this happen without destroying our financial future.
So what did that first year look like, right? So you're like, did you buy an RV? Did you rent one? How did it start?
Yeah, totally. So once we decided this is happening, we had at that point about 170,000 in home equity after taxes and fees and everything else. We realized we could walk away with that money, and I go, hey, we could probably live on 60 or so of this or whatever, and just do a year on the road. We used some of it to buy. We bought a travel trailer because with our family, we didn't want a big Class A RV. Those are very expensive. So we actually got a travel trailer for only like 15 grand. Needed some work, and we decided to fix it up. And then we bought a Suburban that could tow the thing. And so we just kind of like started doing all the things. We bought the trailer, bought the Suburban within a few months, and started renovating our house because we're like, we got to get this thing on the market. And then my wife had the crazy idea that, hey, our 10-year wedding anniversary is in August. How about we don't wait until the end of the year? Let's just speed up the timeline. So we had 7 months to get everything sold, everything fixed up, and everything. Like we had to sell 90% of what we owned, right? We had so many garage sales in Facebook Marketplace. It was kind of insane, to be honest. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the timeline that we had, but we did it all. And so just after our 10-year wedding anniversary was August 2nd. And so on August 17th was actually our first day on the road. And I had never towed anything before. We were towing a 35-foot travel trailer. I'd never towed anything ever. We'd never even been RVing in any way, shape, or form. And we just threw everything in. And my brother-in-law gave me some driving lessons, and I was like, let's go. And so we had to just figure it all out as we went, which was, again, insane. But we were so like, oh man, this is the thing. Like nothing's going to stop us from doing this. And so we did it. We launched. Now, again, our idea was let's do a year on the road. And so we wanted to do everything in 1 year. So we ended up traveling like at an insane pace. We did 25 states in 1 year. We did over a dozen national parks, I believe. And it was kind of crazy. And there was just so many like crazy things that we ran into. And like, I didn't understand weather. I lived in Washington State. We don't get weather there. So then we get out into the Midwest, and they're like tornado warnings and stuff. I'm like, I'm in a cardboard box. There was just so much insanity, but like, it was such an amazing feeling to know that I didn't have to work for a year, that I could just focus on my family, and my kids were young, and then we could just, my wife and I say we have this equation where I was basically selling my time for money, and we were selling that money for stuff. And so we ended up selling all of our stuff to buy back time, with the family. So we sort of flipped the equation. And so that was such an amazing thing that where on paper, yeah, I spent down home equity and I could have had all these investments and blah, blah, blah. But I bought time back with my family in like a critical time when my kids were young. Like there is no price to put on that. So it was really, really awesome.
That is awesome. So tell me, like, give me an experience or a place that you went that kind of comes to mind. What was one of the coolest things you guys did while you were RVing?
Yeah, I mean, the first national park we went to, so we were in the Northwest, we headed east and we went to Yellowstone. And Yellowstone is just this massive, incredible national park. And we didn't really know anything about national parks. There's three in Washington State, never went to one, like my 33 years of living there, which is ridiculous, but we just didn't. You're not a tourist in your hometown, I guess. But once we hit Yellowstone, it was just mind blowing. Like the massive fields and all the animals and like the hikes and all those experiences. It would just like open this world to us. So we rerouted every one of our plans to go to every national park along the way. And one that was kind of cool is we went to South Dakota and there's something called Badlands National Park. And it like looks like the surface of the moon, just like these crazy rounded boulders, nothing's growing there. And we like pulled off on this like weird service road and we ended up parking the RV like next to a cliff. And we were just like sitting there, like this is our home now, and we're parked on the next to a cliff. There's nobody around, and there was like mountain goats walking up the side, and it was just kind of this like, wow, like I'm not sitting in the concrete jungle of corporate America, and I'm not just sort of stuck in city life, and all of a sudden now I'm out here and we just need to live and I have no other obligations other than just to be in this like amazing nature place. And that just kind of like blew my mind. And so we just pursued national parks. Like we would do, our young kids, they were 6, 4, and 1 when we left, and we would do 5, 6 mile hikes with them. Like we would just go out and spend all day just exploring nature, and it was totally like another world. It was awesome.
So, but you said originally you're like, hey, we're only going to do this for 1 year. So after that year, what made you decide, hey, let's keep going?
Yeah, so this is where it gets a little crazy. So we had spent a year. I think I was kind of within budget, about 60 grand. So I'm like, okay, I've got a couple years living expenses here. We should probably settle back down. And after spending a year on the road, exploring, adventuring, and just being with my family, I realized I did not want to plug back into what we thought was a normal life, right? Whatever that was that we used to have, we could not go back to that. So we actually came back into Washington State and stayed at her brother's house. They're gracious to let us stay in the driveway for a couple of months, and we had a wedding there. And so we were just hanging out, and like I don't know what it was, but my wife and I were just like, we can't go back. Like there's no way that we can trade what we just did for plugging back into sort of corporate life. And so we go, well, what does that look like? Because I was like, I don't have any income right now. I don't like I need to figure something out. And we sort of just, again, we ran all these numbers, and this is where that Coast Fi thing came into play. I'm like, okay, my investments are growing. I know that like as long as we have the bills paid, like that stuff will take care of me in my 60s and later. So I'm fine there. So we decided we could actually take a whole nother year off. And so I did boot up my website, and I'm like, hey, let me try some online business stuff. But I really didn't spend a lot of time on that because we just wanted to keep going.
Hmm.
So basically, we'd like informed our family, like, hey, we're not coming back. And it was kind of that was the most difficult part. Like, hey, we're just going to keep adventuring. We don't know when this stops. But so we packed up and left at the end of summer, and then kept going. And so we came all the way back, and we ended up doing 13 more states. I think we hit 38 total in a 2.5 year period. So yeah, we just kept going. And of course, like COVID happened and all those other things. And um, and just were kind of self-contained and just kind of did our own thing and kept hitting outdoor parks and all that jazz. So we went through all the craziness, in the RV. And then in 2021, we ended up here in Florida. There was just something about the sunshine and the vibe, and we loved it. And so we plugged in here, and we actually just recently sold that RV. But yeah, 2.5 years on the road, 38 states. I think it was 20 to 21 national parks and over 100 stops. It was I don't have words for it other than the word freedom, and that word barely captures the feeling that trip gave us and the way that it built our family. It was really incredible.
That is incredible. There's some things that come to mind that I think people to this point, because I think everything has been awesome to understand kind of that journey from corporate world to kind of having that freedom and being able to travel and spend time with your family. But let's
Mhm.
talk about a little bit like some things that come to mind, our family, like grandparents and things like that. When holidays come, how do you guys approach those type of things when you're on the road?
Yeah, that was the most difficult part. That still is the most difficult part, that we didn't move back to Washington State. And our family has spread out since then to different states and stuff. But the first year, again, I think it was just a culmination of all the years of stress and everything. We decided to do holidays like just ourselves. Like we did Christmas by ourselves down in the Florida Keys. We're like, we're just going to do this as our own little family unit. Like this is our thing. From then on, though, so like my wife's mom has been able to travel a bunch, and so she came and visited us a ton on the road. So she would just, hey, where are you guys at? She'd fly out there, and we'd hang out and or drive out there wherever we were, and do that. And so she's been able to come do holidays. And then the other thing is we just hop on a plane, right? Whether we're going back to Washington State or I have some family in Arizona, we just schedule holidays around that. So I think being away from family is the most difficult part of being on the road. There was some freedom to that, of like, hey, we're just kind of doing our own thing. But of course, right, missing those family connections. So that really was the toughest part of travel, period.
Oh, I can imagine. One of the things you've touched on a couple times, and I'd love to define for the audience, is what is Coast Fi?
Yeah. So Coast FI is a term. I'm not like a big fan of the term. I love the term cruise control. But anyway, the idea is to be financially independent. It means that your investments will pay your bills indefinitely. You don't have to work for money again. But Coast FI just means that you hit a certain, you know, checkpoint within your investment journey, that if you stop investing, so say you stop putting money in your 401k, you stop putting money in your IRAs, that money will passively grow to be enough by retirement age. So for me, whatever traditional retirement age, I think it's 67. I think when I was doing the calculations, it was 65. And I ran the numbers and I go, oh, okay, I have this much invested. If I stop investing completely, that money will grow to take care of me in retirement. And so my big threshold was I had six figures invested by the time I was 30. And there's something magic about hitting that 100K number, especially at that younger age. And then if you just have it invested, depending on what your investment choices are and what your expected returns are, that money will grow, for the next 30 years, 35 years. For us, it was a number we were comfortable with. I think it was something like almost $2 million by the time we retire. And then we figured, okay, combined with some Social Security and stuff, like we felt very comfortable that would take care of us in retirement. So there was just this trajectory of like I had invested off and on, not like in a great way, but like it was a good market, and we made sure we always hit the 401k match, and we always had some IRA that we were maxing out. It wasn't necessarily both of ours, but we put some money in, and that money ended up growing to about six figures when we were 30. And so then when I ran all those numbers, I go, oh, if I stop investing, I literally never put another penny in the market, we'll have about $2 million at retirement. And I felt very comfortable with that number. So I said, hey, we're coasting now. And so we were able to just stop, and again, as long as our bills are paid, retirement's taken care of. And so that was such a freeing concept for me. It like unlocked this like freedom. I was like, oh, I don't have to work this crazy job. I don't have to do all of these things and save half my income and do all this stuff to try to like race to retirement. I could just like enjoy my life knowing that I was diligent, earlier. So yeah, that's what the concept is to me.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that most people don't do, right? Where you say, "Hey, yeah, maybe 10 years down the road, I'll have the money to be able to do X, Y, Z." And you're like, "No, maybe we
Mhm.
could crunch the numbers now and see, have we invested enough that will be okay if we don't contribute anymore?" But one thing that comes to mind, you told me you had 170 grand. You
Mhm.
had 60 grand potentially to spend for a year. So let's say we knock that down to 110. You bought the travel trailer, you bought the Suburban,
Mhm.
2.5 years on the road, you're depleting kind of those reserves, right?
Oh yeah.
So what did you decide at that point? You're like, okay, we're running low on cash. How am I
Mhm.
going to make some money and not go back to the corporate world? What
That
did
was
you do?
yeah, no, that was 100% it. So the initial thought was after that first year, I was going to try to boot up my online business and start my website. And as you know, that just takes a while to grow that type of business. And also, we were still traveling. And so it was very hard to actually get any work in because, I will open my front door and there's like the ocean or there's some like amazing mountain. We want to go on a hike. So, like, I didn't try very hard that second year. So what I ended up doing is I'd made a little bit of money on that, but I realized we're depleting our cash reserves a lot faster than I'm earning income. I've got to figure something out quicker. And something that I talked to some friends about is, and because I've been doing finance writing since 2012 online, they said, well, you could write for other people and do it on a freelance basis and make some money right away instead of waiting for, your online business to grow. And so I decided to put my, name out there as somebody that does freelance financial writing for different websites. And then I ended up landing my first clients. And, I'd made a little bit of money, and then we started ramping up work, and I'm like, okay, I can actually make some income here. So I decided, instead of like pouring everything into my online business, I pivoted and said, okay, I'm going to go freelance writing because it'll actually help us pay some of these bills and stop burning through so much cash.
Yeah, and let's talk about that because I think that that journey part of, okay, I'm in corporate world, I have some capital, let's quit, let's go explore. And then it's like the next chapter is, okay, we've explored, we've had really amazing experiences,
Mhm.
capital's depleting, I need to figure out the next move. Hey, freelance writing, but that can be difficult, right? In the sense of you got to build up clientele, you got to kind of prove
Mhm.
yourself. So,
Yeah.
how did that journey go? Like, how much money were you making at the beginning, and then where
Mhm.
did you get to towards the end?
Yeah, for sure. So like that was the big thing, was like, I'm like, I just got to stop the burn, right? Like at some point we were down, I was like, okay, we've got maybe half a year expenses here because we just spent 2.5 years on the road just enjoying life, which again, because we had hit Coast FI, my investments were still growing. And even through the dips of 2020 and 21, like things grew. So it's like, okay, we're still on trajectory for retirement. Great. But I got to pay the dang bills. And so I'm like, I don't have to go make as much as I used to make, but I got to make enough to cover our expenses. And so freelance writing for me, I kind of like fast tracked it as fast as I could because I'm like, I want to ramp up my income enough to at least stop burning through cash. So I picked up my first client in November of 2020. And I think um I was making a little over $100 an article for these guys, and then I picked up a second client shortly after that. I wasn't making a ton, but I was able to make, maybe 2 grand a month at that point. So I was just like, it was reach outs, it was networking, it was, getting on LinkedIn, it was cold outreach to different people. I joined some freelancer Facebook groups, and when people said, hey, we're looking for writers, I put my hat in the ring. I said, hey, look, I have a little bit of a portfolio. I've written for my own website. So it was really just a crazy scramble to like scrounge up any type of work. And then once I got that work, I was able to go, oh, okay, now I have professional clients that I write for. And then I put that into an online portfolio, and then I can share it with future clients saying, look, I'm professionally writing for people now. It's not just some hobby website. And so I did that for about 5 months, and we still were burning through cash because our expenses were a lot higher than, 2 to 3 grand a month. And I ended up, through networking and through some online Facebook groups, finding a higher paying client. And so then I threw my hat in the ring and said, I can do this. And I don't even remember what it was, but I'm like, I don't know. I just was willing to do anything to get the work. And so I can't remember what I was supposed to be writing about for them, but I said I can do it, because I've had experience in all these different areas, and I just figured it out. And I was able to quickly ramp up my income. I think it was by May of 2021 was my first time that I eclipsed 10K a month income. And so it went from, 2K a month and struggling for about 6 months, and then just networking to finally landing a higher paying client, and then just over delivering for these guys, like turning in work early, taking on the writing jobs nobody wanted. People, they started writing about crypto, right? This is 2021. Everybody was excited. Nobody wanted to touch that with 10-foot pole. I was like, I'll do it. Right. I just went after it. And so then I was able to pick up more clients after I'd gotten this larger client, and was able to, I don't think I averaged 10K a month that year, but I got close to six figures, basically within 18 months of starting my freelance writing career.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I think a lot of people are encouraged. I would be listening to this saying, hey, you went from working in a corporate world, making six figures plus, to
Mhm.
being remote, working for yourself, and traveling the country in the process. So that's awesome. So what's the latest thing that you're working on?
Yeah. So I'd originally booted up my online business because I'm passionate about helping people figure out their money. And really, when I boiled it down, I'm like, I want people to understand the power of that Coast Fi concept, and the ability to invest early and often often and grow their wealth to a place where they might be able to do something crazy, like take a year off of work or take a sabbatical or do some, dream travel trip, and they don't need to wait 20 years. So I actually developed an entire program and I started walking people through this concept of like how to invest passively and grow their wealth the right way, and to essentially hit that Coast-Fi goal. And so the latest thing I'm doing is I'm actually hosting a live class that you just go to roadmapmoney.com/invest. I want to teach an investing class that walks people through that concept, that shows them, how I learned about investing, all the mistakes I made, and then the path that I took to eventually quit my job in my 30s, because I don't know, people have access to more financial freedom than they actually even know, but they got to put the parts and pieces in place to have that roadmap. So that's my entire goal, and the thing that I'm working on right now is just to walk as many people as I can through that process.
Awesome. Well, any parting tips that you have for someone that's listening to this saying, I hate my job, I hate my current situation, I wish it was different. What kind
Mhm.
of tips do you have for them?
I would say number one is just be open. Like, I feel like life trains us to be on a certain set of train tracks. And it's hard to open up your peripheral vision and see anything outside of that. I thought no matter what, I had to work another 10 years. I had to save up $1 million. I had to become financially independent before I could do anything else.
Mhm.
And then when I zoomed out and looked and I go, okay, are there any other options? And I realized concepts like Coast FI or like, hey, I could just take a sabbatical. Like, be more creative than what you think is possible, and then it opens up a whole new world, of possibilities essentially. And then number two is just come up with a detailed plan, like actually run all of your numbers, use even just Google Coast-Fi, like look up that term and start plugging your numbers in and be like, is that somewhere that I can actually get to? Does this help me realize that maybe I can pause and hold back or change careers, right? Or do something different. I don't have to stay on the path that I'm currently on. I think there's plenty of people stuck in corporate America working jobs that really cause them to be miserable, but they feel trapped. I call it the golden handcuffs because they get paid really well.
Mhm.
But there's probably an exit hatch somewhere that you don't know about. And for me, that was Coast FI. So I would say just be creative, be open-minded, and just start walking down that path. And again, if you want to join my investing class that walks through that, it's just roadmapmoney.com/invest. And if you don't catch this one, you can always hop on the wait list for the next one.
Awesome. Well, Jake, it's been awesome having you on the show. Thank you so much.